Now that you know how to multiply binomials, you're going to realize that in some of these problems, they throw something extra at you. And so if they throw something extra at you in terms of the problems, like notice this one has more than just the multiplying part. When they do that, what you're going to have to do is remember your order of operations, because that's actually how you want to simplify these, just like you do with regular numbers. So remember, however you want to remember it, you can remember it by PEMDAS. You can remember it by the sentence, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." But this tells you the order to do the operation. So like first you're going to simplify anything inside the parentheses. Then if you have any exponents, you simplify those. Then you multiply and divide. And then any adding and subtracting goes last, okay? So notice, just kind of looking at your problem here, you've got some parentheses, but notice the x plus 2 won't combine because they're not like terms. You do have an exponent, so you're going to do that part first. And then do the multiplication, because there will be multiplication with that. And then after that, any adding and subtracting, okay? So we're going to start with this part. So just like what we talked about in the other video, if you have something squared, remember you have to go and figure out what that is and write it out and then double distribute, okay? And so what's going to happen with this 3x and then that minus that's in front? What's going to happen is it's actually just going to come down for the moment until we can figure out what this is. So you could go to the side and figure out what that is and then put it down right here afterwards, or you could put it as you go. Either way is fine. A lot of people tell me that it's helpful to go to the side, so I'm going to go to the side for this one, but then for the next one, we'll just leave it in the problem, okay? So, well, what do we do when we have something squared? Well, I talked about you write it out. So this means that we have to take this times itself 2 times. So I'm going to write it out times itself 2 times, okay? And then from there, you do the double distributing. So you're going to take the x times everything in this one. So x times x times 2. So x times x is x squared. And then x times 2 is 2x. And now we take the 2 times everything. So it'll be 2 times x and then 2 times 2. So 2 times x is a positive 2x. And then 2 times 2 is 4. Okay? And then from there, these two will combine. So we can go ahead and combine them. So we would get x squared plus 4x plus 4, okay? So that's what we get for this. Now, the other thing that you have to be careful about is notice this is a negative in front of that. What this is actually saying is you are taking, this is kind of like essentially a -1 times that. And so whenever you write your answer over here, you have to actually put it in parentheses first, because that's going to be the thing that reminds you, hey, I've got to distribute my negative before I can do anything else, okay? Because that negative is right in front of that parentheses. So now it's going to remind you, that's why I put it in parentheses, to distribute that negative. So you have to take that negative, which is essentially a -1, times everything that's inside that parentheses. So that 3x will just come down like it did before, and then negative times x squared would be like a minus or a negative x squared, and then negative times a positive 4x ends up being negative 4x, and then negative times 4 ends up being negative 4, okay? So from there, so we've multiplied it out, we did our exponent thing, now we're on to the adding and subtracting part. So if there's any like terms, then you can combine them. And so notice this 3x and that negative 4x are like terms. The negative x squared and the negative 4 do not have a like term with them, so they're just going to come down, okay? So when you write your answer, you're going to combine these, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in standard form, okay? I'm going to write my answer over here so it's not in the way. And so that's the one that has the highest degree, and notice it has a negative in front of it, so make sure that you put that sign with it. So it would be a negative x squared. And then these two would go next, so we're going to take 3x minus 4x, which is a minus 3 minus 4 ends up being negative 1, so it's like a negative 1x. So we could just put negative x, which is the same thing. And then, so we've done all that. And then the only thing that's left is that negative 4, okay? And then just double check and make sure you didn't miss anything, and make sure it's in standard form, highest degree to lowest degree, and then you've got it, okay? So that would be your answer. All right, so what about this next one? Well, same thing. Remember your order of operations. Parentheses, well, these two won't combine, so we can move on. Then, do we have an exponent? We do. So we're going to deal with that first, and remember, and this exponent is just with the x plus 3, okay? That 2, notice, it has its own exponent. It's actually that hidden 1 that we talked about before, okay? So this would technically be 2 to the first. And so first thing, I'm going to figure out what this would be, okay? So that 2, just like in the other problem with the 3x and the minus, it just comes down. And now I'm actually going to do it in the problem this time, okay? So we're going to write this out twice, okay, times itself 2 times. So it'd be x plus 3 times x plus 3. Okay, now for this problem, it is a little different because this one up here had a minus sign in front of the parentheses. This one, everything is being multiplied times itself. So you actually have an option here when you multiply. You could go ahead and do the x plus 3 times the x plus 3 and figure that out, and then distribute that 2 to what you get, which is fine. Or what you could actually do is you could go ahead and distribute the 2 to whatever it's beside. Remember, you only distribute it to the parentheses that it's beside, and then you can distribute from there. As to which way you do it is really actually up to you. Since I see the 2 first, I'm going to go ahead and distribute my 2. So when I distribute it, I'm only going to distribute it to what it's beside. So it's going to be 2 times x. And I have to actually leave it in parentheses because I'm going to have to take that times the x plus 3 in a minute. So it'd be 2 times x, which is 2x. And then 2 times 3, which is 6. And so that's what I got when I distributed my 2. And then that x plus 3 is going to come down. And now I have to double distribute. So just like what we did before, you take each of these terms times all of these. So it'd be 2x times the x, and then 2x times the 3. So 2x times x is 2x squared. 2x times 3 is 6x. So we're done with the 2x, and now we distribute the 6. So 6 times x, and then 6 times 3. 6 times x is a positive 6x, and then 6 times 3 is 18, plus 18, all right? Then if we have like terms, we can do the adding and subtracting part. So the 6x and the 6x will combine, and so I'm going to just bring my 2x squared over. 6x plus 6x gives me 12x, and then that plus 18 comes over. And then there's no other like terms, and it's in standard form, okay? So that's how you simplify dealing with the distributive stuff that we've been dealing with as well, okay? So now I'm going to just talk about, well, what happens when they write it in weird ways, okay? So like notice with number 9, it is a binomial, technically times a binomial, but it's almost like they switched stuff around on you, okay? If they do that, you actually will do it the same way you've done it before, where you take each term separately and distribute it. You just have to kind of not let that bother you, okay? And so notice, if you look between them, there's still nothing between them, so that means you're going to be distributing. You're going to be taking each of these terms times all the terms in the other one. You just got to keep it separated, okay? So we're going to start with our first term, which is 2. So it's going to be a 2 times the 3, and then 2 times the x. So 2 times 3 is 6. And then 2 times x, we get a plus 2x. And so that's what we get when we distribute our 2. And now the other term is the negative x. So I'm going to take negative x and distribute it. So negative x times 3 would end up being negative 3x. And then negative x times a positive x. Well, a negative times a positive is a negative. And then x times x is x squared. So notice the only difference when they do stuff like this is it's not going to be in standard form like we like it, okay? So when we're done, we'll have to put it in standard form, okay? So then from there, once you've double distributed, Then you combine like terms. So notice the 2x and the negative 3x are like terms, okay? So I'm going to combine those. So the 6 is going to come down. 2x minus 3x is just negative 1x. And then that negative x squared comes down, okay? So now from there, you've got to put it in standard form. So you take the term that has the highest degree and put it first. So that would actually be this x squared. And notice it has a negative in front of it. So we're going to bring the negative right in front of it. And then the next term that has the next highest degree would be that negative x. And then that 6, which is a positive 6, goes last. And then there we go. Now it is in standard form, okay? So let's do one more that's kind of mixed up, and then just let me know if you have questions after that, all right? So this one, you've got nothing between them, so that means you're going to be distributing like you did the one before, okay? So we're going to start with our 1 and distribute it, so it's going to be 1 times 3, and then 1 times the negative 4x, so 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times negative 4x is negative 4x. And now we take that negative goes with the 2x that's right in front of it, so we put those together. And so it'd be negative 2x times the 3, and then negative 2x times the negative 4x. So make sure you don't ignore the signs. So negative 2x times 3, well, negative 2 times 3 is negative 6, and then that x doesn't have anything to multiply with, so it comes over. And then negative 2x times negative 4x, well, negative 2 times negative 4 is a positive 8. And then x times x is x squared, okay? Just like before, after you distribute, look for your like terms. And so I see I've got a negative 4x and a negative 6x that are like terms. So I'm going to combine those. The 3 comes down. Negative 4 minus 6 is negative 10x. And then my plus 8x squared comes down. Okay, then I just have to put it in standard form. So my highest degree one was the 8x squared, so I'm going to put that first, and it's positive, so I don't really have to put the plus in front of it. And then the next one would be the negative 10x, so to separate my terms, make sure you don't forget to put the plus and minus signs between your terms, so that goes there. And then that positive 3, again, put the sign so you separate your terms, that would go in the last. Okay, and then there you go.